Howdy ho, gents and ladies who are into epics. I'm back with another video. I was about to actually doze off to bed. I just got home from work, so I was just about to doze off to bed, and then I realized, you know what? I need to do a book review. So I'm here to review this one. Oh my God, hold on. There we go. Right here in the sunlight. See, I'm here. Volume 1 of Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, Volume 1. The Howling Commandos, says it right there. Howling Commandos, Volume 1, covering 1963 to 1965, and the first 19 issues of Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. And yeah, I was going to hold this off and review it with Volume 2, Berlin Breakout, but I gotta tell you guys, I was actually really impressed by an assortment of books, issues in this book. So I didn't want to read Volume 2 and then forget what happened in this volume. A lot of stuff happens. First of all, Stan Lee wrote all the stories. And there's a mixed bag here, guys. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about it to death, how I feel about Stan Lee's writing. Yeah, he's a guy of his time in the 1960s, and people were very corny, cheesy as shit. And Stan Lee is basically writing disposable magazine nonsense for children. Just that was a thought back then, guys. They had no idea that you and I would be reading these stories 60 years later and consider it to be high art and entertainment. Yeah, like I said, comic books back in these days were meant to be disposed of after a quick read. If you were at the dentist's office or at the doctor's, that's what kids did. You know, they would go to a drugstore and buy a comic book and then be like, okay, I'm done, throw it in the garbage. Anyway, again, I always go off the path. I'm gonna do a video one day, guys, of my thoughts on comic books and epics and stuff. If you guys care to hear about it, let me know in the comments. But about Sergeant Fury. So anyway, Stan Lee, I'll say this in a nutshell. Stan Lee, I think, shows more of an interest in writing about the military, and because he wasn't an ex-serviceman during World War II. I don't know what the extent of his service was, but I know him and a lot of men who did the comic book and in his era fought in World War II. So I feel like Stan Lee, this was really up his alley. This is something he enjoyed writing about and knew what to write about. However, it's very much in the Marvel manner, quote unquote, and Stan Lee does that gushy, cheesy dialogue. Oh my God, guys, and the dialogue in this book, I mean, he literally has every one of the Howlers say a line. There are so many panels in each issue where every single Howler, there's 7 of them. There's Nick Fury and then 6 other guys, and every guy has to get a line in. Every guy has to get some lame-ass, cheesy, bad joke in. And guys, no lie, I found myself literally saying, shut the fuck up. Seriously, dude. Fury has some good lines. Fury says some really good stuff, you know, but my God, talk about repetition. It's like, Stan Lee, you fucking suck as a writer. You have great ideas, but you are a terrible writer. I don't know why you had like 20 different titles to write. Why couldn't you let somebody else write this story? You know, guys, and it's a shame that Stan Lee's passed away, because I really would like to get him into a room, and maybe nicely, and just say, Stan, you're not a good writer. You know, I hope you know that, old man, old bean, as Pinkerton says, this little British guy. I'll get to that in a second, guys. But there's just a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking, a lot of filler that just doesn't go anywhere. It's just, I just found myself going like, oh my God, this is so stupid. Really stupid dialogue. But then there are moments, guys, where actually Stan Lee does shine. Stan Lee, I'll tell you guys, issues 6 and 7, 13, 15, and 18 are like, wow. Like, Stan Lee still doesn't show any mature, he doesn't show any like glimpses of a mature path that Marvel, of all comic books, Marvel, DC, whatever, you know, from the 60s into the 70s, there's a real, like by the end of the late 60s, there's a real mature tone that's like a switch, like a light switch, everything just changes. Like Batman, for example, goes from the campy Adam West TV show to suddenly a dark gothic Batman because of Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams, that period, guys. We don't see that here. However, one thing I will give Stan Lee to his credit is that as the world around him evolved and changed with Vietnam, with drugs, counterculture, hippies and all that stuff, Stan Lee is aware that there is a real problem in society. There was either a problem in the 1940s, in the 1960s, whatever, and Stan Lee made an address to it. For those of you who don't know, there's a black guy in here, Gabe Jones. Where is he? Gabe Jones, right? And they make him gray, like T'Challa, the Black Panther, the Wakandans, anybody who was black or African American was gray. That their tone was gray, not brown, because apparently, and it wasn't a racial thing. I used to think, guys, and I hate to admit this, I used to think that maybe they thought that black people wouldn't sell. Like if somebody saw an actual brown-skinned character in the comics, nobody would buy it. Like, ew, black people, because people were racist until the civil rights movement happened. People had a thing about blacks in media, in movies, in TV shows, in comic books, The truth was actually they didn't have the proper brown tone, the coloring for the characters. And the best they could do was this gray color. I just wanted to point that out in case anybody wants to know. So yeah, there's a black dude with a gray, it's like a purplish gray or grayish purple color tone to it, because they didn't have the brown color. It was very limited back in the early to mid 60s. It wasn't until 1967? I think like Robbie Robertson in Spider-Man finally was brown skinned. That was representative of black people. But I digress again, guys. My point is that Stan Lee, of course, has a black guy in the Howlers, which, by the way, is not factual. Black people were not in white units until after the war ended. I looked it up. It was not until 1948, 3 years after World War II ended, that black people were able to fight alongside whites and other groups, racial groups. But Stan Lee is like, you know what? Fuck that. Let's create I think this is like an alternate Earth where black people fought alongside with white people, and there's no racism, no racism, nothing where, no one's giving Gabe any issue because he's black. Nobody's calling him the N-word. Nobody's saying, hey, you don't belong here. Go with the other people, the Tuskegee Airmen, or, nobody says that. There's also a Jewish guy, Izzy Cohen. Where is he? We've got Izzy Cohen, who was a Jew from Brooklyn, New York. We've got Rebel Ralston. Oh my God. Again, he has the worst dialogue, guys. He literally says, I declare here. Oh my goodness, sir. I don't know if he's from New Orleans, Louisiana. I think he's from Kentucky. But man, guys, he was one of the worst ones to read because everything was I declare. The problem with Stan Lee's writing is that he has to make everyone into a caricature or a stereotype. That's where Stan Lee fails. And it's the dialogue. He just fails. He just fails in that. Gabe, the black dude, hardly says anything except he blows a bugle and says, oh my goodness. Yeah. Again, nobody really has any good dialogue except Fury, right here, Nick Fury, and Dum Dum Dugan, Corporal Dum Dum Dugan, who I read when I read his voice, I imagined him to be this big Irish dude, but apparently he's from Boston, which is Irish. A lot of Irish Americans are from Boston, so I wasn't far off. So big burly voice, Dum Dum Dugan, yeah, and Fury's yeah, Nicholas Fury, yeah. And then of course there's Private Dino Manelli, who was based on, I guess, Dean Martin, and Pinkerton, who actually joins the Howlers in issue 8 after one of their guys, Jonathan Jr. Juniper, I'll say that fast 3 times, dies in issue number 4. And it's a little disappointing. I wish I could say that issue 4, a death of a Howler, would be a special issue, but they kind of treated it all right, he died, that's the end. They didn't even have the Howlers mourn his passing. They didn't have they didn't reflect gee, this young, he was an Ivy League, wait, no, he's not even on here. Junior, he was a blonde just like Rebel. So you can't have two blondes. So I guess they had to kill him off there and have one of them stay. He didn't do much. He was just like a young, fresh-faced Ivy Leaguer, and they killed him off. And it was a bummer, but they kind of moved on. And then 4 issues later, they got Percy Pinkerton here, who's based on David Niven, the British actor, for those of you who don't know. He was an old-time actor from the 30s, 40s, 50s, won an Oscar for Best Actor. And that's who he's based off of in a way. He's like, oh, dear sir, oh, me. That's my voice for him. Oh, jolly good, sir. Oh, you know, my bumbleshoot, his umbrella. He carries this dumb umbrella, and he's treated like a typical English dandy stereotype, but he's tough, like John Steed from the Avengers. And, you know, he's very polite and gentlemanly, but he's a tough British guy. He doesn't curse, but somehow he fits in with the Howlers. I mean, a guy like him in real life would get his ass kicked. They would tease the hell out of him. They would call him and they do call him, Fury does call him a limey, which is a pejorative term for a British person or an Irish or Scottish person, you know, anybody in the English countryside. You know, they use words like kraut for the Germans, Japs for the Japanese, which are mean words. But those were the times, and that's Stan Lee's writing, because Stan Lee's writing how they talked back then. So I wasn't offended by that, you know, and it's pretty bold, because really those words are considered racially insensitive by today's standards. But besides that, we get a lot of interesting appearances. Baron Wolfgang von Strucker first appears in issue 5. Baron Zemo, who first appeared in Avengers number 6, concurrently was Dr. Zemo in this series in issue number 8, same issue that Pinkerton joins the Howlers. Captain America and Bucky guest star in issue 13, which was actually a pretty fun issue. What else did I say? Issue number 6 was the one where they had the racist guy. They had a bigoted guy named Stonewall, George Stonewall, which sounds kind of like George Stonewall, famous Civil War general who fought for the rebels. Stonewall was, he joined issue 6, excuse me, and something else happened to that issue. I forget. It was a pretty big issue, but he joins the Howlers, and he doesn't like Izzy because he's a Jew. He doesn't like Gabe because he's black. And he doesn't call them any racial slurs, but he's just like, I don't want to be in this unit with you. I don't know why you are here. You. And of course, Fury being awesome, he's like, we don't allow bigots in here. And you know, he really puts them in his place a lot. Calls him a rat. You rat think you don't belong here with us. If you don't shape up, then you're gonna ship out. You know, it's a lot of macho, rah-rah American bullshit. But it's cool. Again, kudos to Stan Lee to say that, or to introduce a bigoted American character. I thought he was a Nazi in disguise, but no, he's an American soldier who just does not like Jews and blacks. And Stan Lee, when did it come out? 1963 or 4. I mean, he's tackling something that was prevalent at that time, whether it was World War II or in the 60s. This was happening, and again, as bad as his writing is, Stan Lee at least had the balls to issue, to make issue and make not light, but put a spotlight on prejudice and racism in the military. What else? So that was good. Then the following issue, issue 7, had the court-martial of Nick Fury, which was probably Stan Lee's best writing, just in terms of, but then again, I think at the time he was probably watching a lot of lawyer shows. There was a TV show back in the 60s, I think late 50s, early 60s, called The Defenders, which eventually became a comic book, but not the same thing. It has nothing, like The Avengers was a TV show about British spies, which was also a Marvel comic, had nothing to do with that. The Defenders, also having nothing to do with the Marvel comic book, was about lawyers. But issue 7, really, the court-martial of Nick Fury was the title, was really well written. Like, it felt like a real trial. There was like, objection, sustained, overruled. Can you tell the witness? Can you tell us, you know, your witness, can you tell us what Nick Fury, your origins with Nick Fury? Anyway, basically, what happens is Nick Fury goes on a mission with a guy he knew from back in the neighborhood. And he tries to warn him. I'm going to spoil it, guys, but this is such a great issue, and I'm just surprised at how well written it was. So Nick Fury has a problem with this dude because apparently they used to date the same girl and they got into fights and whatever, but they respected each other. They weren't friends, they weren't buddies, and they even like say it like it's such like mature dialogue, and it's written by Stan Lee, and it's shocking how the issue before and the issue after is just the usual crappy Stan Lee dialogue. But this issue, number 7, seemed to just be straight out from the headlines or straight from a TV show about lawyers and you know, like Law and Order, basically. It felt very natural, and it sounded right, even though it was from the 60s, but it felt like something from Law and Order or A Few Good Men, you know, for anybody who's seen that movie or seen the play. And so anyway, the story basically is Fury knocks the guy out, disobeys. The guy is his commanding officer because Captain Sawyer he leaves temporarily to teach other soldiers how to fight or whatever. And so this new guy goes into Normandy. They go to Normandy, but it's not the D-Day invasion. They go to Normandy to ambush some Nazis, but Fury remembers that a Nazi officer Fury had shown him kindness. It is very convoluted, but it's really good. Had warned Fury that the building is rigged to blow up if they go in, but the new the new commanding officer tells them, we're going to go in and we're going to take care of this mission. Those are my orders. And Fury's like, no, we can't go in. There's a reason why, you know. And if they had gone in, they all would have died. The Howlers would have all died. The Howling Commandos, Howlers, whatever. And so Fury knocks the guy out, disobeys the command. The place blows up, but everybody's okay. All the Howlers survive. So then Fury wakes up and they're like, hey, guess what? You're going to be court-martialed because you disobeyed a commanding officer and you beat his ass. So that's why he's going on trial. But then he remembers, oh yeah, this is why. And then, you know, let's bring in this German Nazi officer is like, yeah. I warned Fury that this would happen. And then Fury is exonerated and they live happily ever after. But it's a really good, well-written story. And I'm sure Stan Lee ripped it off from the Defenders or something, or he probably looked at the court-martial of Billy Slovic. Look it up, guys. It was sad. The court-martial of Billy Slovic was a real live thing that happened. I think it was about the deserter, Billy Slovic, who was brought to trial for deserting, and then he was executed. It's a very sad story, but what can you do? Those were the times. So that's that. Captain America and Bucky appearing in issue 13 was pretty cool. What was it? Issue 15 had this young kid, Hans Rutten, who's a 14-year-old kid helping the Howlers against the Nazis. Check that issue, guys, out. Again, I'm talking about, for those of you tuning in, I'm talking about volume 1 of the Howling Commandos, Sergeant Fury. He eventually becomes the mascot of the Howlers. But I like that story because his father is a traitor to the people of the Netherlands. It takes place in Holland, but he's really a double agent, the father. And the kid hates his dad, so he runs away and becomes a commando. Like, really, really interesting stuff. For a war comic from the 60s, if you can get past the cheese and the corn that is Stan Lee's writing, it's actually some good stuff, some gems and jewels. And finally, guys, before I wrap this up, issue 18, again, another spoiler, Nick Fury's his love interest, Pamela Hawley, gets killed during an air raid. And Nick Fury, by the way, guys, I cried. I have no problems admitting it. The build-up towards it, there's no real big dramatic build-up, but Nick Fury wants to propose marriage to Pamela. And her own father tells him, because everybody knows, you know, and they're trying to tell him, Nick, you know, don't go, stay, we have something to tell you. He's like, no, get out of my way. I'm going to go propose to that girl. And he's happy. Nick Fury's actually happy, guys. And then he's told, the woman you love is dead. And actually, why not? I'll show you guys. It's the second to the last issue. It's issue number 18. Hold on, guys. I don't have my glasses. I'm like blind as a bat. It is, okay, so 418, it's like on page 416. Hold on. By the way, this book is only like 448 pages. It's actually quite, I only read this in 3 days, 2 to 3 days I read this. Yeah, so I started like 2 days ago. Hold on, guys. Yeah. Oh man, and this fight, they go into a fight with the Nazis. Fury is in a battle with this Nazi who snatched the ring from his dog tags, and he falls in the water. Which, by the way, this would have never happened. Fury would never in nighttime. By the way, it's nighttime. Fury would have never found the ring in the guy's hand, in the water or whatever. This would have never happened in real life. But somehow he manages to get the ring because he's so determined to propose to Pamela and make her his wife. And then he finds out right at the very end, guys, Pamela's dead. And Fury's just like, he's just like hitting himself. And then there's these panels right here, guys, him with the ring, and he drops it, and he just walks away with the ring. I had to look at it myself, and I cried, guys. I mean, and all the Howlers and Captain Sawyer are trying to tell him, don't go in. There's something we got to tell you, and he just doesn't listen. So I cried. And then the next issue 19, Fury's going out for revenge, and they call it Eye for an Eye. That's the title of this next issue. The last issue of this volume is Eye for an Eye, and he goes and finds the motherfucker who ordered the air raid, the Nazi, goes after him. They get a furlough to go on a break. For those of you who don't know, a furlough is when a soldier takes a vacation from active duty, and they only have a set amount of time. By the way, I was a U.S. Marine like 20 years ago, long time ago, so I know all about furloughs and stuff. But that's another. I was a Marine, fought for my country. But I'll talk about that another time, guys. Anyway, back to Fury. This is so they decide to go on a furlough to find the motherfucker, to kill him, and they do. But they do it in a classy way. I would have liked to have it. I would have liked to have seen it in like a bloodthirsty revenge, But they handle it with class and taste. Again, Lee does a good job, I guess, with the Comics Code Authority breathing down their necks. They couldn't show anything vulgar or violent. This is like 1965 by this time. So we're kind of getting into hippies and counterculture and the change, but it's still genteel enough for it to be safe. So there's no violence or whatever, but the implication's there. And I loved it. I really was surprised. And that's why I didn't want to wait until reading volume 2, because I know I would have forgotten all these details, guys. So unfortunately, guys, volume 1 is out of print. I literally had to pay like over $70 on cheapgraphicnovels.com, and I'm sure you can get a copy of it. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon or eBay for however, I don't know, guys. I don't know if you guys out there would be willing to spend over $70 for this book, but I would recommend it because it's actually a pretty good collection. I'm not big on war comics, and I even thought to myself, oh boy, oy vey, as Izzy would say. I don't know if I'd want to read a war comic book from the 60s without superheroes. But I was actually pleasantly surprised with it. It was fun. Oh, sorry guys, I got to also put out in issue number 3, in the 3rd issue, Reed Richards also guest stars. I don't know why I forgot this. Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, the future Mr. Fantastic, appears in World War II as an OSS agent. It's pretty cool too. It was a brief cameo, but it bears repeating just because I just want to mention this, because it's funny how Stan Lee thought to bridge the Marvel Universe with heroes in the present day 60s with World War II, and it made me think, isn't it interesting how there really weren't superheroes there was Captain America, Human Torch, Submariner, the All-Winter Squad, the Invaders, the Liberty Legion, yada yada. But really, in the world of Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos, there was really no superheroes. It's World War II. It's basically American soldiers versus the Nazis. Yeah, Captain America appears with Bucky, Baron Zemo, Dr. Zemo, and then there's Reed Richards. But Reed Richards, his cameo appearance in issue 3 is interesting and indicative of how Stan Lee, and that's like 1963. Yeah, 1963, where, 2 years after Fantastic Four, already before Avengers, Daredevil, X-Men, all that. I'm sure, Iron Man and Ant-Man were already introduced, and Hulk was there. There's really not an established Marvel universe, but he makes it clear to us, the readers, that already there is a line, the 1940s. This is World War II, and we don't get the Marvel universe until 1961 with Fantastic Four and so on. But he's able to say, hey, these heroes, these future heroes, lived during World War II. And it's interesting. I think there's also something with Ben Grimm. I looked it up too. There's something with Ben Grimm, who also fought in World War II, because he was a fighter pilot. He appears in what was it, Captain Savage and the Leatherneck Raiders, or the Battlefield Raiders, or Combat Kelly. Yeah, no, it was Captain Savage. And all of these, Captain Savage and Combat Kelly, were spin-offs of Sergeant Fury. And Captain Savage also appears in a couple issues, but he's referred to as the Skipper. He's not Captain Savage. So it's interesting. It's like a TV show or a daytime soap opera where characters will cross over or spin off into their own series. I like that. I like that. And I always say that Stan Lee had a mind for like sitcoms, science fiction anthologies, and daytime soap operas, and he loved to combine them all into comic books. So that's something I'll commend Stan Lee for. I also didn't mention the art guys. Jack Kirby did the first 7 issues, as well as the 13th issue with Captain America and Bucky. And then Dick Ayers, I don't know how it's pronounced. I think it's Ayers, it's supposed to be pronounced. He takes over with issue 8, and then straight through until issue 19, with the exception of 13. Which I really like. I like his artwork, Dick Ayers. He was mostly an inker, Dick Ayers, but this is his chance to be the penciler. And of course, a lot of other people pitch in as inkers. So that's pretty much it, guys. What are we at? Wow, 26, almost 27 minutes, guys. That's pretty much it, guys. I was really, really passionate about this. I didn't want this to go this long, guys, but I'm really, really into it. And I hope you guys liked it. Smash that like button. Hulk, smash that like button. I always wanted to say that. When I do She-Hulk or Incredible Hulk, I'll probably say something corny and lame like, guys, Hulk, smash that like button. But seriously, guys, I love your comments again. I hope you enjoyed this one, because I really had a good time actually reading Volume 1. There's a lot of corny shit a la Stan Lee, but a lot of issues. I'd say like 5 or 6 issues. It's like when you listen to an album, like a music album, and you pick out some singles that are really good. That's what this felt like. Like 5 or 6 songs out of 19, but in this case it's issues, were really, really good and really worth getting. Volume 1, unfortunately, is out of print, and there has not been any word about any reprints, but get it, guys. And again, Cheap Graphic Novels has it on sale, has it for like over $69.99 plus shipping costs. But I think it's probably better than what you're going to find on Amazon or eBay. So that's completely up to you guys. And of course, guys, coming up, I will read Berlin Breakout. Right? Berlin Breakout? Berlin Breakout, yes. I thought maybe Breakout Berlin. I don't know, maybe it was the other way around. Yes. Volume 2, 1965 to 1966, covering issues 20 to 36 and annuals 1 and 2, which annual 1 deals with them in Korea, in the Korean War, which happened in 1950 to 1953. So we really did have a Korean War, and Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos take part in that as well. And also in Vietnam with annual 3 and 4. But that's probably going to be in volume 3 if they ever decide to get that out. Not many people liked Sergeant Fury, guys. That's the truth. Unfortunately, Sergeant Fury probably was a big seller for a time, and then people just lost interest, which is usually the case with war comic books. But I'm anxious to read this, guys. Berlin Breakout is the next one, and then I will read Amazing Spider-Man Volume 10, which came out which I got yesterday, but it came out last week. And of course, the new one, the next epic that I'm looking forward to is Thor. Thor Volume 20. Was it the one after World Engine? So 24, Volume 24, The Lost Gods. That'll be the next one. That'll be June 11th. Anyway, guys, that's enough out of me. It's almost been 30 minutes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.